Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donahue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy.
Hi everyone, this is Margot, and unfortunately, our good friend Sonia injured herself yesterday while walking her dogs. She is not able to record today, so we decided to replay one of our favorite episodes. It's about Frank Sinatra. It's fun, it's interesting. We're all going to think about Sonia and send her good, healing, healthy vibes. She fractured both of her elbows, which is no joke. So let's keep our good thoughts in mind for Ms. Sonia for her quick recovery and her return. Thank you all very much for your support. We so appreciate it. She still has a voice. We still keep the show going. We just don't know how we're going to make it work, but we will make it work. Okay? Everybody be safe. Walk your dogs carefully. And don't be a creep. Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donahue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, friend.
Hello, my friend. Ring-a-ding-ding. This is going to be a fun episode.
It's going to be swinging.
We are the podcast that talks about creeps, and we just want to make it clear if this is the first time you're listening to us, hello, welcome. We have creeps from many angles, and sometimes the creeps, we were saying off the air, they're like a capital, all caps, bold letters, awful, awful people. And sometimes we just have people who are just, we're kind of assholes sometimes and, got away with some bad behavior. And I think that's where we are today with this person. We certainly didn't want to go into child molestation or anything like that. We wanted to kind of keep it like a fun creep.
Fun creep.
Look, I'd hang out with Frank Sinatra in a second. If I could go back in time and hang out with him, I absolutely positively would.
For sure. I'm sure he's super fun.
I just wouldn't date him, marry him, or be friends with him. That's all.
Yeah, that's all.
That's all. Okay. So, thank you guys for showing up today. We are the podcast that, like I said, talks about creeps. What we do is we take turns talking about a creep, and then the other person then mentions a non-creep at the end of the show, so you leave feeling good and happy about the world, and not that it's all terrible. And we want to thank our new Patreon members. You guys have been showing up there. We're putting out bonus episodes there, and we're putting out a newsletter there, and you guys have been terrific. And we have new members, Sonia. They're Amanda, Marcy, Desi, Linda, and Veronica.
Oh, welcome.
Yeah. It's like Archie gang, right? Like
Did Jughead join? No Jughead, huh?
Amanda and Marcy threw him out. He was too sexist.
Fuck Jughead.
Fuck him. I want to thank, by the way, also the people who left 5-star reviews. You guys have been so good about doing that for us in Apple Podcasts. Mets fan 0606. She's glad that we curse.
Yeah, Mets fan.
Fucking A.
Fuck yeah.
Scardy Cat, Harry Goodbirth, Dewanda Mana, Melinda Isaacson, and Alpha Tiger 9527. All of them sent us 5-star reviews. We totally appreciate that, you guys, because
Thank you.
When some people, if they don't like the show, they just go there and just leave 1 star and they barely even listen to an episode. And it's just, it just helps us also to find our people. We've had like thousands of people find the show recently. So, the last week, I think a lot of it has to do with Shira, one of our super fans, but thank you.
That is so awesome. We have the very best listeners. We have a very active, I know you're going to mention it. We have a very active private Facebook group, and it's really the best people. The best.
It's a private group, so you do have to ask to join, You just go into Facebook, and we're going to keep the basic Facebook page just to keep the episodes there, but we're probably not going to engage very much there. We really prefer to do it in the private Facebook group, and you do have to ask to join it, and just look up What a Creep podcast group and ask to join it. If you don't look like a juggalo or a total lunatic, we'll probably let you in, most likely.
Yeah.
I also want to mention we are on Twitter at CreepPod. That's how you find us on Twitter, because somebody had What a Creep for 10 years and never used it.
Creep.
We are on Instagram, What a Creep Podcast. We do have an email. Great place to interact with us is on email. It's What a Creep Podcast, spell it all out, at gmail.com. We finally have a merch store.
Yeah. Woo! We have merch.
The link is in the show notes. We put in the Facebook group, but it's Threadless. It's whatacreeppodcast.threadless.com. Go to threadless.com and type in What a Creep Podcast and you'll find our store. And Sonia, we got the book bags today. Like I got that I sent to you. They're so cute.
I can't wait. I'm going to use that so much. It's adorable.
And everybody drink. And
Everybody drink.
you get just get a little Scotch Guard and spray that shit. You're good forever.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm so excited the store's open.
By the way, with Patreon, I forgot to mention we have different levels to support us, but all the Patreon members that support us, we will send you stickers. But for the Patreon members, we also have these charms. So if you're in the Patreon group and you didn't get a charm, please send me a note and I'll get that in the mail for you. You don't have to take one if you don't want one, but they're just super cute. But we do.
They're popular.
Yeah.
They're so popular. So Margot sent some of the charms to me and I posted a picture and so many people like reached out and asked if they could have one of our charms. I'm like, you could join the group. You could no, I was like, yes, I will share with you. But what was funny was sometimes it was like friends of my friends, like people that I don't even really know, but listen to the show. And they're like, you know, Sonia Mansfield, right? Can you ask her to send me a charm?
That's so
and then my friends are like, wait, what? It was so funny. I love it. They're cute. They're cute.
We do have a stack of stickers, and those we give away for free. And Sonia, I didn't even tell you. We got some yesterday that are bigger. They're like 3 inches by 4 inches. It's perfect to put on a laptop, or I don't have a car. I think it could put on a bumper sticker. But we have those, and I'll send some to you, obviously. But we have a stack of stickers. If y'all just want some stickers, send us an email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. We'll get that out to you right away. And I think I went through everything. Did I forget anything, Sonia?
I don't think so. I think that's everything. And that's a lot. And
Yes.
that's plenty.
Yes. You guys are like, shut up. Get on with the show, girls. That's what Sinatra would say. He'd say, shut up.
Shut up, shutting up.
Shut up. Oh, this is going to be such a fun episode. I love this. All right, here we go, guys. It's Frank Sinatra. My sources are the London Telegraph, his Wikipedia page, of course, London Daily Mail, New York Daily News, Mental Floss, PBS.org, a fantastic documentary there, a site called Musicaholic, mentioned the Daily Mail, also the Telegraph, and there's another article, I'll put it in the show notes, it was really good, and the book Frank Sinatra Behind the Legend by J. Randy Taraborelli. He does all these celebrity biographies and he gets all the dirt. This is one of my favorite books I've read in a while. Sonia, I laughed out loud like the first half of it. His second half of his life is kind of sad, but the first half is fucking hilarious. I love it.
Oh my God. I'm into it.
Okay, so here we go. Francis Albert Sinatra is one of the most celebrated vocalists of the 20th century. He has sold over 150 million records and continues to sell just as well now as he did at the height of his popularity. He's also an Academy Award winner, a movie producer, and he created Reprise Records in 1960, which still exists to this day. They called him the chairman of the board because he started his own record company. I mean, he's done a lot. I was actually pretty surprised. He's won a Kennedy Center Honors, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the Congressional Gold Medal. He was given 11 Grammy Awards, earned them, excuse me. Nobody gave him nothing. He, the Grammys Trustee Award, Grammy Legend Award, Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. He was included in Time Magazine's most 100 influential people of the 20th century. He was known for his blue eyes and velvet voice. He was one of the first teen heartthrobs. He was a lover of women, a man who would just as soon get into a fight and then hug a person. He was demanding of everyone around him, but outside of music and performing, he cut himself a lot of slack. Frank was a loyal friend unless you pissed him off. He was a good actor if you didn't ask for too many takes. He was a lover who expected fidelity and gave none of it back. I love writing. This was fun to write. He was incredibly progressive for his time, but used ethnic slurs without much care. Frank ran on all cylinders until he ran out of gas, and then he expected to be treated with kid gloves. He could be very generous, but also he could hold a grudge for years. He could be elegant, and he can also be a total brute. He was demanding and then pathetic. He was either manic depressive or bipolar, depends who you ask. And he could act like a total creep sometimes. He is a complicated, smart, funny, mean, talented, childish, and ultimately a sad man who was his own worst enemy. So let me just give you a quick background, and then I will highlight the creepy parts. And you could talk about Frank Sinatra for like 6 hours. It's, you know,
No,
I'm trying
yeah.
to keep it down.
Yeah, I think isn't the documentary you mentioned, it's like 4 hours long, right?
And it could be longer. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so much there. But so Frank was born December 12th, 1915, Hoboken, New Jersey. He is the only child of Italian immigrants, Natalina Dolly Garaventa and Antonio Martino Marty Sinatra. So it's Dolly and Marty. Frank was born in his family's kitchen, which was the thing at the time.
Oh my.
With the help of a doctor and his mother's mother. Dolly was 5 feet tall and barely weighed 90 pounds most of her life.
Gosh.
So here she is. She's 9 months pregnant. She's giving birth. He was delivered with...
So gross. You have to eat in there.
It's just that's the whole thing. Like also with like Water for Chocolate. Like one of the first scenes is this woman giving birth on a table. It's like yuck.
Ugh, you have to eat on that.
No. So Frank was delivered with forceps, which caused scarring on his face, ears, and neck. Frank also weighed over 13 pounds when he was born.
Oh my God. First of all, she's tiny.
Yeah.
13 pounds is huge.
I've never heard of it. He also, when he was born, he appeared to be blue, and his mother was bleeding a lot. So the doctor kind of thought he was stillborn and placed Frank in the kitchen sink to take care of his mother. So his mother's mother, turned on the water on the sink and started holding him, and he came back to life.
Oh my gosh.
So this was his
What a crazy beginning.
Well, I just said he entered the world in chaos. If you think about it. Yeah. I mean, it was just incredible. Dolly never had kids again. She wasn't able to. And she said, I don't want any.
No,
I don't blame her.
Seriously, 13 pounds. It probably fucking ripped her in half. That
Yeah.
poor woman.
Yeah.
That's awful.
His upbringing in Hoboken was quite nice compared to a lot of people at the time. He was an only child. He had all of his parents' attention, and they doted on him. His mother was a midwife. For $50, she would help deliver your baby at home. She also performed abortions out of their home in the basement. She and her husband were raised Catholic, but they did not go to church, and she didn't think it was okay for women to be forced to give birth if they wanted to. Dolly was a big personality. Honestly, there could be a show just about Dolly. I love this woman. I mean, she's also complicated.
I would love to watch that show. She sounds complicated. She sounds fascinating.
So she came from Italy with her husband. He never learned to read or write. I never learned to read, but he could speak English. Okay, and he was a boxer who took the last name O'Brien, Marty O'Brien, because he thought if he sounded Irish, he would win more matches. He never did. But he became a fireman and became captain of the Hoboken Fire Department. Dolly had a facility with languages. She could pick up languages really easily. So she got involved in neighborhood politics, mostly Democratic politics. She was a hardcore Democrat. They used her as a translator all the time for French, Spanish, Italian, Greek.
gosh.
Like she could just pick it up right away. She was really, really smart.
Yeah.
And she got things done and she could help you out. But here's the thing with her. You never cross Dolly. You cross Dolly, she ices you out. His last wife, Barbara, said that she supposedly knocked him around a lot when he acted up. But I think that's also kind of that was the time. His father never laid a hand on him. She was a women's rights advocate, who chained herself to City Hall in 1919 for women's suffrage. And
Wow, Dolly is tough.
I wrote this. Dolly was a baller. I mean...
She was. Oh my gosh.
She and her husband Marty also owned a tavern for a while, and Frank as a kid would hang out, do his schoolwork. Well, didn't like doing schoolwork very much, but he would hang out there and watch the musicians, and that got his original love for music. Marty and Dolly really wanted him to go to college to achieve the American dream, but Frank knew he wanted to be a singer. His biggest idol was our former creep subject, Bing Crosby.
Mm-hmm.
Never having bothered to graduate high school, he instead took a series of odd jobs to pay for elocution lessons to get rid of his Jersey accent. He never got rid of the accent, but his teacher was impressed with his vocal range and told him he should be auditioning for big bands. So he does any kind of singing gig he can get, and for a little while he joins a group. It's a quartet, and they have different names. They call themselves the Hoboken Four, the Secaucus Cockamamies.
Oh, that rolls right off the tongue. That's great.
And the Bayonne Bacalas, which is like the most Italian thing ever.
Like, none of those names are good.
And he would get all the notice for his voice
Yeah.
and his looks, and he just had charisma. You know, you couldn't take your eyes off
Yeah.
him. In 1938, he landed a solo gig in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, called the Rustic Cabin, and they would broadcast over WNEW radio in New York City, which was huge at the time. This is also the year he was arrested for a morals charge. He was having an affair with a married woman from Lodi, and Dolly hated that she was from Lodi, by the way.
Not that she was married, just that she's from Lodi.
Lodi, that was just trashy to her. This woman took to stalking Frank when he tried to break up with her.
Oh, my gosh.
So she came over to the house to look him up. Dolly locked her in the basement to teach her a lesson.
I want to do a show called Damn Dolly.
When he visited her in Lodi, I guess to apologize or whatever, she had him arrested, but they eventually dropped the morals charges.
Isn't that crazy to think that you could be arrested for that?
For stooping someone? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, an adult. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. That's, oh my God. Imagine if they still did that. Ooh. Everybody'd be in jail.
Everyone would be in jail, yeah. In 1939, he joins the Harry James Band for $75 a week, which was a lot of money back then. And he releases a few singles, but they only do meh in business. His personal life is doing much better. And let me tell you something. Sinatra got laid left and right his entire life, probably as young as 14. He was incredibly successful with women and was always courting a couple at a time. And he was an incredible pickup artist. And when these women talk about the things he said and how he talked to them, I totally get it. I'd hit that.
He's very handsome.
He is, in like a rugged, tough way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But every once in a while, he would fall in love, like he did for 17-year-old Nancy Rose Barbato. He was 19, she was 17. He was a lifeguard, and she came from a well-to-do Catholic family. She was his number one fan, and she gave him nonstop love and encouragement his whole life.
Oh.
I know. Here's the thing with Frank, though. He is this never-ending bucket of need. Have you ever had an artist friend who commanded all of your encouragement and attention? Like, you just know somebody that constantly needs attention? That's Frank.
Yep. That's me.
No,
I'm kidding.
Yeah, we got to cut the phone call, Sonia. Okay. He is obsessed with being the best in the world, and he joins the Tommy Dorsey Band, which was a big band at the time. And he's obsessed with one of the horn players can hold a note for several bars without taking a breath. And what he didn't know is the guy just had this little thing attached to his instrument to help him breathe at the side of his mouth. But so Frank thought he was just doing it on his own. So Frank took to swimming lessons and running to practice his lung capacity. And he could sing up to 10 bars without taking a break. Most people can do 2 or 3.
Yes.
And most people on Broadway, maybe about 6 is really good. So he was a phenomenal. He trained at it like he was an athlete. And he was constantly observing other performers, trying to get an idea how to, work with the audience, because he couldn't play an instrument and he couldn't read music. So his whole thing is, well, I'm the singer. I got to make that look interesting. And at the time, people just stood in front of a microphone. They put their hands behind their back or whatever. He holds the microphone like it's a woman. And he cradles it in his arm. And every time he does a ballad, he'll dip the microphone side to side. And the women lost their goddamn minds.
Okay. Do you remember they used to make fun of Frank Sinatra on Looney Tunes?
All the time.
Yeah. So they would have like like a really skinny chicken or something with like big ears.
Yeah.
And it would sing into a microphone and it would like cradle the microphone. And then all the other chicks would be, they would scream and they would be like, "Oh, Frankie! Ah!" Like that was the thing.
And they lose their feathers.
Yeah, they would lose their feathers. They would lay like a million eggs, like that sort of thing. Like it was a running, like he was so well known and women loved him so much. It was a thing that like people could point to, and you would watch those cartoons. And I didn't know who Frank Sinatra was. I just thought it was really funny. And then years later, you see what he was doing, and I'm like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All those Looney Tunes cartoons, you get it. Yeah. All these years later. Yeah. They used the girls. His first fans were teenage girls, and people put down teenage girls all the time. Fuck y'all. They rock.
They do. They have excellent taste.
They do. And they were called Bobby Soxers because a lot of them wore school uniforms to school, so they would roll their white socks down to their ankle. They thought that was sexy. And by the way, Jim Morrison was a huge Sinatra fan, and he said that was his influence on the microphone. Anyway, Frank and Nancy get married February 4th, 1939, and she immediately goes on the road with him with the Tommy Dorsey Band. Frank later said he was only scared of only two people in his life, his mother and Tommy Dorsey. Tommy Dorsey was very tough on him, but Sinatra became a fan favorite, so he had to keep him. Nancy said it was the best time in their marriage, but then she had to leave as soon as she got pregnant. And then that's when Frank carried on with as many women as he could. Mm-hmm. Frank, after a year or so, decides he needs to break from Dorsey. He needs to be his own boss. He needs to do his own thing. But he's in a real bind because he had signed a contract giving Tommy Dorsey 43% of his lifetime earnings in show business.
Holy shit.
43%. Lifetime.
It's
fucked up.
Insane. Yeah.
Yeah. Eventually, they had a settlement, and Frank paid him off. All kind of rumors of like what that entailed. But they actually, there was a lingering tension between them, but there was also a lot of respect. And Tommy Dorsey, he made him his son Frank Jr.'s godfather. Tommy Dorsey died in the 50s. Frank becomes a solo act, and he performs at the Paramount Theater in New York, which was on 43rd and Broadway, and held over 3,000 seats. He would play multiple shows a day. The problem is his female fans would not want to leave, which would cause a logjam of women coming and going from the theater. And one night on Columbus Day, they called it the Columbus Day riots because there were thousands of women. You've been there, 43rd and Broadway, filled with women, girls, screaming and screaming and screaming. So he realizes he needs to hire a publicist because, he wants to maximize all this. And this man's name is George Evans, and his job is to manage his public image. And one of his first jobs is to track Frank down to a seedy hotel in Jersey City, where he was holed up with a stripper friend named Lips Luongo.
Ooh. Is that her real name?
I think it was. Yes, that's a Christian name.
Obviously.
She was upset and said to Frank while he was leaving, like, "You said you were going to divorce her for me." And Frank said, "Shut up. Like I'm going to marry a broad named Lips." He's got a point. I love that story.
And I love your accent.
I read this out loud when I was reading the book. I had so much fun reading this book. Now, these are the World War II years, and there was a lot of chatter about why Frank was not serving in the military. And he had said he had a punctured eardrum because the forceps thing with his doctor. This happened to him at birth. But columnist Walter Winchell was just trying to stir the turd, and he said Sinatra paid thousands of dollars to not serve. And, the people came back and said, that's absolutely not true, untrue. But it was sort of like, this is beginning of when people are thinking, he's Italian, he must be mobbed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when he went on USO tours in Europe, he actually had a hard time from a lot of the soldiers because some of them were like, well, why aren't you serving with us? And also some of them were like, our wives and girlfriends love this guy and we think he's a doofus.
Yeah. They're like, fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy. But later on, the FBI, they had a big file on him for a lot of reasons, but there was nothing to those rumors. He did have a punctured eardrum. And he was also sleeping with their women while they were gone and to war.
He totally was. I was thinking about you're talking about the all the girls like packing his concerts, and you were saying also that people like dismiss teenage girls. I think people, Frank Sinatra now is considered a classic. The Beatles are considered like the best band of all time. These were like the equivalent of like boy bands.
Yeah,
at
they
the
were.
time. Frank Sinatra was like, I'm not saying like Justin Bieber is a Frank Sinatra. I'm not saying that, by the way. I'm just saying like he was insanely popular like that. Girls loved him. The Beatles, watch one of the old Beatles concerts. It's just teenage girls screaming.
Right.
That's all it is. Like, but they're also artists, and they become like more than that, but they were plenty when they were just the boy band thing too. So I don't like it when people dismiss music as teenager music. It pisses me off.
It enrages me, and especially teenage girls. Like, it's just like it's made to be. That's even just so much more trivial,
right?
And flinty, and you know what I mean. It's like, fuck you.
Yep.
All right. So Frank had appeared in a few movies in the mid-40s as a singer, usually in an orchestra, but he really wanted to show off his acting skills. So in 1945, he co-starred in Anchors Away with Gene Kelly. This is when his reputation for being a pain in the ass on the set starts. For a guy who continues with film acting for decades, he never does stage. He hates being on set. He has no patience for the old hurry up and wait routine. He is sullen and moody, and he gives everybody a hard time. Even Gene Kelly, who is trying his best to teach him how to dance. Frank would snap at him and get upset because he found the steps too tricky. So eventually, Kelly had to choreograph it. He had to dumb it down so that Sinatra looked good, but that Kelly didn't look that good in comparison. Now back to the chicks. Frank is now a
chicks man.
Frank is now father to daughters Nancy and Tina, and son Frank Jr. when he starts to openly have an affair with actress Lana Turner. Lana was gorgeous, very sexy, and they were open about their dating, and it made Nancy crazy. And she and Frank had several rows about it. Eventually, his publicist, George Evans, warned Lana that she had signed a morals clause with her movie contract. And if it was known that she was a homewrecker, she would lose her movie contract. She dumped Frank. Mm-hmm. Also, her good friend, Ava Gardner, who was married to two future Creep episodes, Artie Shaw and Mickey Rooney. We will be talking about them in the future. She convinced her to dump Frank because she found him to be obnoxious. Frank went back home, but he continued to cheat on Nancy, which caused major fights in their home. The kids heard it. It was really bad. One of them was actress Marilyn Maxwell, who was also involved with Bob Hope at the time. He was also a past creep.
Oh, yes.
One day, Nancy saw a gift.
So intertwined.
As they say in the Trashy Divorces podcast, spider webs. There's all spider webs here. And Trashy Divorces does a great Frank Sinatra episode and Rat Pack stuff. So anyway, one day Nancy sees a gift box, and she opens it, and it has a beautiful bracelet in it. And she thought it was going to be an anniversary gift, so she put it back. And a few days later, she and Frank are having a party at their house. And not only was Marilyn invited and shows up, but Marilyn is wearing the bracelet that Nancy found.
Oh.
And she thought that was going to be her gift. It was Marilyn's gift. So not only did Nancy throw her out, but she took the bracelet as well.
Oh, damn.
Which is a baller move.
That's like that shitty movie Love Actually.
Yes.
That's where they got that.
In 1948-49, after the war, he's still recording some acclaimed music, but his popularity is going down. And he's just not being considered for movie parts, the kind he wants anymore. And Sammy Davis Jr. described seeing Frank in New York City, 1949, walking down middle of Broadway, and with no fanfare at all. And just a few years earlier, he was the biggest star in the city, and now no one recognizes him. He's feeling so low, he starts to look for affection from someone new and more challenging than Nancy, and he sets his sights on Ava Gardner. At first, she thought he was a tool, but they liked the same things: booze, cigarettes, cursing, and staying up late.
I like a lot of those things.
Me too.
Except the cigarettes.
Yeah, I gave up cigarettes. Nancy tries to get George Evans to threaten Ava Gardner with a morals clause, but she laughs in his face. And Frank is so upset that he did that he fires him on the spot. And this is a guy who helped him all these years. But he just, when you crossed Frank, he just dumps you. Ava was one of the most beautiful women in Hollywood, and her career was on the rise, but his was in a slump. With amazing timing, on Valentine's Day in 1950, he asked Nancy for a divorce because he was in love with Ava Gardner. Lance Armstrong also asked for divorce on Valentine's Day from his first wife.
How romantic.
Yes. That was her first creep. Nancy threw him out, but she told him she would never get a divorce because she was too Catholic. In 1950, that year, a few months later, George Evans dies very suddenly of a heart attack at the age of 48.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, he was
That's so young.
So young. His family said it was the stress of working with Frank and then being dumped by him that did it. Frank moves to Nevada to get his divorce legalized. He and Ava get married in 1951. Tempestuous relationship, with tons of fighting and cheating on both sides. He owes money to the IRS and his ex-wife, and his kids hate Ava Gardner with a passion. Also, his voice is starting to give out on him. He's got some nodules, problems on his throat. And when he does perform in public, it's to half-pack theaters now. It's really depressing.
Yeah.
Ava goes to Spain to shoot a movie and falls in love with a matador / bullfighter.
Oh, my gosh.
Which is
That's some soap opera shit right there.
Which is the shittiest profession in the world, by the way.
For sure.
Bullfighting is terrible. They are photographed everywhere together. And this enrages Frank. And he knows this is going on. So here's a story, true story, July 1952. And there's this account of Frank beating up a U.S. Army Signal Corps officer. His name was David Mayer, and he was just 24 at the time. David was attending a party on the ship, the SS United States, and it was a super hot day with several parties happening all over the ship. And it's like a day like today, hot and humid where it is in New York right now. It's miserable. He was looking for his friends in their stateroom, and it was so crowded in the hallways because people were trying to get air that he accidentally bumped into Sinatra. Sinatra shoves him from behind, and then the guy turns around. He's being shoved. He turns around. It's Frank Sinatra and two goons trying to hold Frank Sinatra back. And Frank Sinatra says, "I'm going to fucking kill you." Apparently just stood too close to him. His handlers...
How dare you?
How dare you? His handlers apologized for Frank's temper, and they managed to get him away. But that's the thing with Frank. He's got just this really bad temper. He's upset with life. Right.
Yeah, it sucks to be cheated on, Frank.
No shit.
Asshole.
In 1953, the movie From Here to Eternity is being cast, and Sinatra knows if he gets the part of Maggio, it will get his career back. But no one will read with him because he's considered a has-been, and also because he has a reputation of being a total pain in the ass on set. Ava Gardner called in every favor she had to get him the part. He did
That's nice of her.
Which was really nice of her. He did it for little money, and he managed not to annoy anybody during the shoot. He minded his P's and Q's. He receives the Academy Award that year for Best Supporting Actor.
That's a good movie.
It is a good movie. Donna Reed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's trouble at home because Ava once again dumps Frank. He is so distraught, he attempts suicide for the first time. Frank will
The
make...
first time?
He
Oh,
makes
my goodness.
several attempts in his
boy.
life. Yeah.
Okay.
This is the first indication that he has very severe issues with depression. And people argue, is it bipolar? Is it something else? But when he gets depressed, he gets down.
Damn.
It gets
okay.
very dark. They announced their separation in 1954, but the divorce does not come through till 1957. Somehow he blames actor Peter Lawford for the breakup because he dated Ava years before. It makes no sense.
What?
He won't speak to him for years because of it. We will get back to Peter Lawford.
Mm-hmm.
Sinatra gets his Academy Award, and then he signs with Capitol Records. And this is when he puts out several albums, and they're all huge hits. And the songs like My Funny Valentine, Young at Heart, They Can't Take That Away From Me. And he also scores a part in the movie version of the play musical Guys and Dolls. He plays Nathan Detroit, and Marlon Brando plays Sky Masterson. Sinatra was pissed to not get the lead role. I mean, but imagine, like, I should be Marlon Brando's part. Like, who are you? Yeah.
Yeah. The balls.
The
balls
balls
to think that you should be the lead over Marlon Brando. Come on.
He's at it again, and he starts being a pain in the ass on the set. He cannot stand Marlon Brando and his method acting. Marlon tried to be friendly at first and asked him if he wanted to meet up and rehearse and go over the lines and come up with some ideas. And Frank told him, I don't go for that method crap. He also called him...
That's for pussies.
That's for pussies. Frank also called him Mumbles and barely spoke to him on the set. Marlon would later say when Frank dies, he's going to give God a hard time for making him bald. And they had all kinds of back and forth on the set, but Marlon Brando, who loved to play pranks and just didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
They had a scene where Frank Sinatra had to eat a piece of cheesecake, and Frank only would do 1 or 2 takes. He could not handle, and Marlon could do 50 takes and do each one differently. They're just oil and water here. So Marlon knew that he hated cheesecake, so Marlon kept purposefully flubbing his lines. So he had to eat all this cheesecake, and he got totally sick.
Oh, sounds like heaven to me.
Yeah, right? Ooh, with
I'd be
strawberry,
like, thanks, Marlon.
graham cracker crust. Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
Oof. So years later, Frank was up for parts in On the Waterfront and The Godfather. Marlon got them both and won Oscars for them. So we always had a pissy thing about Brando. Around this time, Frank had a popular TV show on ABC TV called The Frank Sinatra Show, and it aired on Friday nights. When his longtime friend Phil Silvers had his own variety show on CBS, Frank was initially happy for him until he found out that that show was being aired the same day and time. He called Phil Silvers and said, "You had to go to Fridays, huh?" Hangs up the phone, doesn't speak to him for the next 16 years.
By the way, probably not Phil's decision.
Yeah. Oh, he's
What a
so
dick.
petty. In the mid-50s, Frank falls in love with Las Vegas, and he's soon palling around with a group of entertainers that would become known as the Rat Pack, which includes Joey Bishop, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and Peter Lawford. Outside the group, it's Lauren Bacall and her husband, Humphrey Bogart, and Angie Dickinson, who apparently had sex with everybody, and good for her.
Oh, boy.
These people take carousing to whole new levels. They're up all the time. They party all the time, like the Eddie Murphy song.
Yeah. Party all the time. Party all the time.
Bogart dies in 1957, and Frank immediately starts taking out Lauren Bacall. Within a year, they are engaged, but he dumps her without warning, mainly due to cold feet, but he just ghosted her.
Yeah. That's terrible.
Yeah.
And Lauren Bacall she was smoking hot.
She was 32.
Yeah.
She was smoking hot. Yeah. And she was completely in shock about it because she went from having a man that like adored her to this guy. Yeah. And she always complained he didn't have a sense of humor.
That doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't surprise me either. His sex drive is legendary. He always has call girls and escorts on the ready. He loves having naked women standing around at parties and when they're gambling in their hotel rooms. Loves it. But he hates public sex. So there's no group sex and there's no open humping. He has standards, okay?
Yeah.
He's not going to see a peen.
I'm not going for that.
Yeah. He has flings with multiple women, including Angie Dickinson, Juliet Prowse, another smoking hot woman, Marilyn Monroe. And he and Marilyn have a thing going for years and years and years. They're both seeing the same psychiatrist for a while for psychiatric help. But Frank refuses to take any of the medications, and Monroe takes them all. This goes back and forth for years, and there's rumors about how badly he treated her. But sadly, Marilyn was abused by most of the men in her life.
Yeah, her story's the saddest.
It's the saddest. So let's just go to the 60s.
Yeah.
Frank launches Reprise Records and spends the next 20 years recording there. He is incredibly successful, and his catalog still makes millions a year for the family. This is also the year, 1960, the first Ocean's 11 movie was filmed. And it made the Rat Pack look cool to another generation. And it's unwatchable now. It is so boring. Nothing happens.
I tried to watch it too.
It's
Other than
so
looking at
boring.
them. They're good looking guys. So you're like, yeah, like the look of it is fine, but the movie is boring AF.
Yeah, the 2001 remake is one of my favorite movies, and it's
Oh my God,
such an improvement.
It's like a joy.
Yeah.
That movie's a joy.
It is. He still has a bad temper, and it comes out with friends and foe alike. One time in 1961, Frank was at the home of his composer, Jimmy Van Heusen. Jimmy had an original Norman Rockwell painting that the artist created specifically for him. He and Frank had an argument about something. Frank was drunk. Frank attacked the painting with a carving knife, destroying it.
Jesus. That's not cool.
No. And Frank told him, if you try to fix it or put it back, I will blow the fucking wall off.
What an asshole.
Yeah. He also has interest in social causes. He was against anti-Semitism. He made a movie about anti-Semitism, and this is when the first time the FBI came around because I thought he was a communist. But he was actually pretty progressive, and he was a big part of he loved the Democratic Party. He becomes friends with Peter Lawford again because Peter had married Patricia Kennedy in 1954, which meant he had access to John Kennedy now. Frank was crazy for Kennedy and lobbied very hard for him. He, as well as Peter, basically pimped out Marilyn Monroe to the Kennedy brothers.
That's sad.
Which is so sad. She was having affairs with both Kennedys and Sinatra, and was all a big mess. Frank hated her drug use and was turned off by it. She died August 5th, 1962. And they all scatter away, but Frank and the Kennedy brothers are still pretty tight. Until they found out about the mob. And this is where we get to the biggest scandal of his life. Here are the questions. What is his connection to the mob? How many mobsters does he know? Did they help his career? Is it just a slur against him because he's an Italian American? Let's talk about that. I don't think Frank was an active member of any mafia. He knew the guys that were mobsters because he grew up in Hoboken, New Jersey, and his mom knew all the players. But he, like a lot of people, he found them exciting. He made the very big mistake. There was a Havana conference in 1946, and they talk about this in Godfather 2. They sort of allude to that. Frank went there to meet Lucky Luciano, who was one of the biggest mobsters of all time, and Bugsy Siegel. It was this convention of mobsters, and he just showed up in Cuba just to shake some hands and pal around with these guys.
Yeah, sure.
Like one does.
You do.
Like you do.
Yeah.
He kind of ignored the bad shit that they did. Well, when Kennedy becomes president, the FBI presents him and says, this guy is involved with the mob. You can't be hanging out with him. Bobby Kennedy is now the attorney general. He was fighting the mob in the late 50s. He says to his brother, we can't hang out with this guy. I love him too, but he's bad news. We can't. So Frank had bought a share in a lodge and casino hotel in Lake Tahoe, and they made him give it up. He always said, I'm not involved with the mob, and I think he was friendly with them.
Yeah, well, and he loved Vegas so much, and
Right.
Vegas is like mob central.
Totally. So the Kennedys are figuring out how they're going to untangle themselves from Frank, because Frank was a big reason why they got elected. He made them look cool and whatever. So Frank lives in Palm Springs, and he finds out that the president's coming out west for a quick vacation. And he puts in 25 phone lines. He redoes the house. He puts in a heliport just for the visit. And then it was up to Peter Lawford to tell him that they were going to be spending it at Bing Crosby's place instead, a Republican.
Oh, snap.
Frank loses his goddamn mind.
Yeah.
He destroys the home, all the improvements he made.
He even took a hammer to the heliport and just beat the shit out of it.
My God.
He's a maniac. He was furious with Peter Lawford and cut off all contact with him again. Never spoke to him again. He was incredibly sad when JFK was killed in November of 1963, and he did go into a bit of a depression over it. In 1964, early 1964, he's filming a movie. Frank is 49 years old, and he meets a lovely blonde nymph with the name of Mia Farrow. Mia was 19 years old and filming the TV series Peyton Place at the time. She had never gone on one date in her life. She was very sheltered. And she had daddy issues because her dad just died the year before and he was kind of a wacko. She had things going, yeah. So Frank just asks her out. And she says, okay. So they go to a film screening and he holds hands with her the entire time. And then when they leave, he offers to he goes, why don't we fly to my Palm Springs home? And she's like, I can't possibly go now. I have a cat and I need to pack a bag. That's my girl.
Yeah.
Got to bring my cat.
Mm-hmm.
He thinks it's adorable that she says that. He goes, you know what? I'll send a car for you first thing in the morning and we'll hang out. He sends a limo. She brings her cat. She packs a bag and she goes to Palm Springs. And they fall in love.
She brings her cat.
Of course, she does not go without the cat. And that's non-negotiable with her, which I love that. They fall in love quickly, even though they have two different temperaments and lifestyles. He likes swing music and the standards. She likes rock and the burgeoning hippie movement. Frank hated rock music so much that one day while driving home, he heard Light My Fire from the Doors. And I love the Doors, but I know they're a trigger for some people.
Yeah.
Some people hate them. He thought the song was ugly and degenerate. So he switches the station. It's also playing Light My Fire. It was a big hit at the time. So Frank reportedly pulled the car over and destroyed his car radio with his shoe.
I knew it. I knew that's where this story was going. I was like, what a crazy fucker.
Jesus Christ, just switch to another station.
Yeah. This radio's broken. It only plays Light My
Doors.
Fire.
So Mia soon finds out that he's emotional, he's needy, he lashes out when he faces any kind of disagreement. There are red flags everywhere for these two. She hates his friends. She hates Las Vegas. You can't catch Frank in LA hanging out at a rock club. So they just have two different lives. Mm-hmm. And Frank wants her to quit acting and just hang out with him full time. She says, no way. They have a fight about it. And she says, you are not my father and I am not your daughter. Mm-hmm. So for Mia's 20th birthday, she begs him to have just a small party in LA with friends and family because she's self-conscious about the age difference between them. Frank said no and insists that they have a big blowout in Vegas with just his friends and the press.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
It's her birthday. What an asshole.
She wound up in tears and he basically scolded her and told her to grow up.
And then he sent her to her room.
Here we go. At Agent Swifty LeVar's holiday party in 1964, Mia showed up first before Frank because he had a TV gig that night. She recognized the famous people there, including Lauren Bacall, but she was too shy to speak to anyone. When Frank finally shows up, he walks right past Mia to get a drink, and he sees Lauren Bacall. They had not spoken in 6 years since he broke off their engagement. For some reason, Frank is mad at Swifty, and he turns to Swifty and says, "You're the reason we broke up." And he proceeds to take off all the tablecloths off all the tables and throw food everywhere.
Yeah. What?
He grabs Mia by the elbow and drags her out. And later she finds out that Frank cut off his engagement to Lauren Bacall because he read in the gossip columns that he was going to propose to her. And he found out Swifty LeVar told Luella Parsons as an exclusive item. And it infuriated Frank because he controls the press. So he ends his engagement. Right. Mia stays with him. Even when he backs out, taking her to as his date for his 50th birthday party. His kids were a little upset about her.
Yeah. I wonder why. She's a babe. She's a baby.
She's a kid.
Like they're older than her probably.
She's like 3 years older than them.
Yeah.
And they're not over their mother being divorced from their dad. And Nancy never got remarried, by the way. She held a candle for him. So Mia's crying. She's hysterical. She's really upset. And she has to go to Peyton Place the next day, 6 a.m., has to be on set. So she walks to her dressing room, closes the door, and proceeds to cut off her long hair into a pixie cut.
It's adorable, by the way. Everybody's drink.
Amazing.
Yeah.
She leaves her trailer, hands the clump of hair to her director, and says, "Okay, I'm ready now." These people are very dramatic, both of them.
Yes.
They don't half-ass anything. Frank hated it. He hated the haircut.
Of course he did.
He almost dumped her for it, but then he got over it. On July 19th, 1966, Mia, 21, marries Frank, who's 50. The wedding was in Las Vegas, and neither told their families it was happening. No one. So it was devastating for Mia because she wanted to at least tell her mother. Yeah, nobody. The one of the few guests that were allowed to be there was Red Skelton, who was a comedian. And Mia's like, "Why is he here?" And he goes, "He's my friend." Then he tells her, he shot his wife recently, but he's going to get off because it's an accident. Red Skelton his wife had a shotgun wound to the chest and lived. It was ruled an accident.
I didn't know this at all.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Holy shit.
He was one of the few.
We need to put those on the list.
We got to look that shit up.
Yeah.
So they start off happy enough, but there's a project called The Detective that Frank buys. It's a novel, and he wants to star and have Mia be his co-star. He, in fact, is the first John McClane, if you know the Die Hard movie. The Die Hard.
Oh, yeah. That's okay.
It was based on the movie. The book came out in like 64 or something like that. And it's a terrible movie. And 10 years later, the man writes the sequel, and it's I forget what it's called, but it's the basis for Die Hard, the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Frank still had the rights, by the way, and they offered it to him. They had to. And he wisely is like, "Nah, I'm in my 70s. I'm not going to do this shit. you give it to somebody else." But anyway, The Detective is a piece of garbage, and it's really hard to watch today because it's so homophobic and racist and sexist. A lot of trash. He's filming this in L.A., and he wants Mia to have the co-starring role, which is just a nothing part. And she didn't want to play it. Instead, she was excited about this new movie being cast, Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah, smart choice.
Yeah. Frank thought it was garbage, and her mother-in-law, Dolly, called her aghast and says, "Why are you making a devil movie?"
Damn, Dolly!
Dolly doesn't take it. But Mia really wanted to work with Roman Polanski, one of our last creeps.
Yeah, one of our previous creeps.
So she's supposed to film Rosemary's Baby, 1 week in New York, and then fly out to L.A. and join Frank, who was filming The Detective at the same time. She is filming a masterpiece that is running behind schedule. Mia tells Frank, "I cannot be in The Detective. I'm sorry, I can't." He's like, quit the movie. She's like, "I can't. I just can't. We're in the middle of filming." So he loses his mind. He calls the director, he calls the producers, he's screaming at everybody.
Because he thinks he's her father.
Well, he's controlling.
Yeah.
If I tell you to do something, you have to do it, or you don't love me. That's, do you know what I mean? So the very next day, she's on set, and she's served divorce papers in front of the whole cast and crew.
That's cold.
It's cold. She is a wreck, but she accepts the divorce and later on marries Andre Previn, and then has a long-time relationship with Woody Allen. We talked about him in a past episode.
Yes, we did.
She also said that she and Frank got to go together over the years many times, and she intimates that Ronan Farrow may really be Frank's son.
Yes.
Yes.
If you look at their pictures side by side, it's pretty uncanny.
Yeah.
Like, for sure.
Frank spends the next few years dating a variety of hot young women, including Peggy Lipton and Carol Lindley. He gets hot ones.
Yeah, Peggy Lipton.
Oh my God, she was beautiful. She was in the Mod Squad.
Yeah.
And then Twin Peaks.
Hot.
She's hot.
Yeah.
So he's getting older and crankier and even more set in his ways.
Like old people do.
As old people do. Look, I'm getting cranky and set in my ways too. It's around 1970 he meets a woman named Barbara Marx, and she was married to the least funny Marx brothers, Zeppo.
I love the title. The least funny.
She thought Zeppo was a good father to her son. This was her second marriage, and they had a nice enough relationship, but they were basically living separate lives. So she married him to have somebody take care of her. They start going to parties at Frank's home in Palm Springs. One night while playing charades, Frank got frustrated for someone not understanding his clue, and he threw the timer against the wall, shattering it into a million pieces.
He's such a fucking baby.
He's such a man-child. It's such a man baby.
It's like, it's baby fish mouth.
Exactly.
Baby fish mouth. Baby talk. Who says that?
Everybody say when Harry met Sally. It's great.
Yeah.
Barbara managed to calm him down and make him laugh. He had finally met a woman who could keep up with him energy-wise. She would hang out anywhere he wanted to go, and she wanted to take care of him. Barbara was moving on to the third husband, basically. Mm-hmm. He still has his bipolar rages, but she holds her own. And he's older. You know, he can't swing as fast yet. Pretty soon enough, she leaves Zeppo. They have a separation, and she moves into his home in Palm Springs, and she starts running the show. The kids are not thrilled with Barbara.
They don't like anybody.
I wouldn't like anybody. I wouldn't like my dad's fourth wife either, I'll be honest with you.
Right.
I'd have to work hard to like her. She's got to be.
Well, yeah, by then you're like, whatever. Like, he'll marry someone else after you.
Exactly. And it's also somebody else taking his money and taking advantage. Look, Barbara's dead. I can say whatever I want. What do I care?
Right.
They want to get married in 1976, but Barbara insisted it would be a church wedding, even though that meant converting to Catholicism. She wanted Frank to have his first marriage annulled. And that's one of the reasons that caused a bit of drama between Frank, Nancy, and the kids, because that would make them illegitimate.
Yeah, I don't understand how that's a thing. It's like,
I know.
You can't get it annulled. They were married for years. They have children. Come on.
Yeah. Barbara's just testing things. Barbara's just showing she's in charge. Dolly Sinatra sadly passed away in 1977. By this time, his father was gone too. He had moved her out west to be closer to her. Frank was completely destroyed. He went to his room, kind of locked the door, leave me alone, right? Barbara went over to Dolly's house and had all of her nice belongings, clothes, and jewelry locked up in their Palm Springs home. She took it all.
Oh, my gosh.
She would not allow Nancy or Tina or Frank Jr. to go through it. I know.
That's really shitty.
It's so shitty. She ran a tight ship. And her smart move was that Frank had a whole group of people. He had a butler and he had a cook and a maid and a gardener and, all that. When she married him, she made a high tea and invited them all to it and treated them like royalty. And they'd never been treated that way before. And she treated them really, really well. So they were loyal to Barbara. So when Nancy or Tina would try to get around to like, hey, can I do this, do that? They're like, no, you have to listen to Barbara. Barbara said, no visits today, whatever. They split up a few times. He cheated on her a lot.
How does he still have the energy for that?
I don't know. He's ring-a-ding-ding. He's got to do it. He has his needs.
He does.
Frank died. I'm just going to go real quickly. So Frank dies in 1998 at the age of 82 of a heart attack. Barbara died in 2017. Nancy Barbado Sinatra, his first wife, lived to be 101 years old.
Whoa.
She died in 2018. Ava Gardner passed away in 1992. And his son, Frank Jr., died in 2016. Oh, my gosh. Frank Jr. was kidnapped in 1963. That's going to be a Patreon bonus app. I'm going to talk to you about that because it is batshit.
I can't wait.
But that's our creep today. I did it. Frank Sinatra.
Good job, Margot. I know you put so much work into that one.
I did it my way, Sonia.
Yeah, you did. You did it your way. You want to be a part of it.
So I still love Sinatra. I still love his music. I play it all the time. He's just a creep.
Yeah.
That's all. I mean, he's not perfect, but he did some bad things to people.
Yeah.
And it's okay to call people out on their shit,
Absolutely, it is okay. So Frank Sinatra came up recently, and I sent you a screenshot of something. I guess our gross president said something about Frank Sinatra in one of his mumbly, crazy, ranty speeches, and Mia Farrow tweeted, Frank Sinatra would have hated Donald Trump. And then Nancy Sinatra said he did hate Donald Trump.
I love Nancy Sinatra.
Yeah. And I love that Nancy Sinatra and Mia Farrow apparently follow each other on Twitter and like tweet to each other.
I'm sure they're old friends. They have a lot in common,
Yeah, they're practically the same age.
And Frank adored Nancy. I mean, he loved his kids, but she was like the apple of his eye, so she would know.
Yeah. You did a really good job there.
Thank you. And the connection's been great. I shouldn't have said anything.
Oh, you jinxed it.
Yeah. So you're going to talk about our non-creep today?
Yeah. Are you ready?
Totally ready.
Okay. This is a good one, I think. I'm sure you know who Tony Bennett is.
I've seen him live.
Yeah. And was he amazing? I bet he was.
He could hold a note really long, too. Maybe he did swimming lessons like Frank.
Yeah. I picked him because he is the founder of the Frank Sinatra School of the Arts in Queens, New York. If you don't know, Tony Bennett is a singer. He does traditional pop standards like show tunes, jazz numbers. Some of his hits are Because of You, Rags to Riches, and of course, I Left My Heart in San Francisco. He will be 94 in August. He is a big deal here in San Francisco. People lose their shit for Tony Bennett. And they play I Left My Heart in San Francisco at the end of every Giants game when they win. It's like there's a statue here that just like plays the song when you walk by, and like people complain because people walk by the statue all day.
That would get annoying.
But he has won 19 Grammy Awards, including a Lifetime Achievement Award, 2 Emmys. He won a National Endowment of the Arts Jazz Master, was named. I'm sorry, he didn't win it. He was named a National Endowment of the Arts Jazz Master. He won a Kennedy Center honoree. He's sold 50 million records worldwide. He is also a painter. They are on display at like the Smithsonian. And he did a portrait of Duke Ellington that is hanging in the National Portrait Gallery.
Oh, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal. I also found this nice little quote. In a Life magazine interview in 1965, Frank Sinatra said, "For my money, Tony Bennett is the best singer in the business."
Aw.
Born August 3rd, 1926, as Anthony Dominic Benedetto, I think. I'm going to say that's right. He was the son of a grocer and a seamstress, and he was the first member of his family to be born in a hospital, not a kitchen.
Not a kitchen table?
A hospital. Grew up in Astoria with an older sister, Mary, and older brother John. When his father was ailing and unable to work, that's what the family grew up in poverty because of that. But John Sr., that's his father, instilled his love of arts and literature and compassion for human suffering. But he died when Tony was 10 years old. And growing up in the Great Depression, really, it had a lasting effect on Tony Bennett, and he really hated the Hoover administration for it, and it made him a lifelong Democrat.
Excellent.
Yeah, which I'm fine with. That's not why I picked him.
No.
He began singing at an early age. He was singing for money at age 13, and he worked as a singing waiter in several Italian restaurants in Queens. He went to New York's School of Industrial Arts. He studied painting and music. I'm like, I don't want to take up too much more time with his childhood, but he was a copy boy and a runner for the Associated Press in Manhattan, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
And he fought in the final stages of World War II. He was in the Army. He fought in the Battle of the Bulge.
Holy shit.
And he participated in the liberation of a concentration camp.
Oh, wow.
I know. Big deal. Tony's big break came in 1949 when one of our creeps, Bob Hope, noticed him singing with Pearl Bailey in New York City. Tony was a big believer in the civil rights movement. He actually participated in the Selma to Montgomery March. And years later would continue his commitment. He did not perform in South Africa when all of that was going on. And the Martin Luther King Center in Atlanta gave him the Salute to Greatness Award for his efforts for fighting racial discrimination.
Wow.
Yeah, he's got a lot of cool stuff here. He's been involved in a lot of different charities. And in 1999, he co-founded a nonprofit called Exploring the Arts alongside this woman named Susan Crowe, who was a former school teacher and eventually became his third wife. And Exploring the Arts is a nonprofit that's about bringing the arts education into public high schools. Arts and music, things like that, they're always the first thing cut.
Right.
And so it's all about like giving money and resources to schools so that you can have that, because that stuff is so important.
Kids need a break.
They need a break, and it works another part of your mind.
Yeah, they say musicians, they're usually good at math. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Exploring the Arts nonprofit, it partners with 37 different public high schools. It's in all 5 boroughs of New York City. It's also in Los Angeles, and they're expanding into more schools. He's also raised millions of dollars for Juvenile Diabetes Foundation, and he paints every year the cover of the American Cancer Society holiday greeting card, and then the proceeds go to cancer research.
Jesus, he's perfect.
He seems like a really good guy. Like, I couldn't find anything bad about him, and people love to sing with him. And he's so interested in like modern. He's not like Frank, where Frank's like, fuck new music. Like, Tony's not like that. Like, he does these albums like duets, and he sings with like he's been singing with Lady Gaga. He sang with Amy Weinstein before she passed away, and he thought she was so talented and he loved her. He was so sad when she passed away.
Yeah.
And he's interested in new music, and he comes to San Francisco all the time and like performs at like different things to raise money for different charities. And recently he did a coronavirus like sing along of I Left My Heart in San Francisco. Like, he did it online, and we were all supposed to like go outside and sing along with him to support the frontline workers. Like, he seems pretty solid. He seems like not a creep. So that's our not a creep Tony Bennett.
I want to amend what I said before, because I still have Frank Sinatra in my brain. Studying music is equal to studying mathematics. And my dad had a hard time with mathematics, and then he started, his parents, my grandparents, started giving him piano lessons, and he said learning that helped him learn math.
Yeah.
So it's using different parts of your brain. I was just like, it makes you good at math. I mean, I'm still like talking like Frank. Where's Lips Luongo? I'm horny.
I understood what you were saying, but that's good you clarified. I think that arts are just super important. It's just something kids should be able to explore all different things to help them find what they're good at or what they're interested in. And that could be music, it could be painting, it could be drawing, it could even PE is cut all the time. PE is cut all the time. Like, and kids need physical activity. Just think about like how when you go for a walk, it clears your brain.
Right.
And you're able to focus. Like, all these things. These things are so important, and I'm glad that Tony Bennett is doing this. I think it's rad. I think he started the school, the Frank Sinatra School of the Arts. I think that was like the first project of this nonprofit, and it seems to be really clicking and working for people. So I hope there's more of it. We need more of this.
We need more Tony Bennett's.
We need more Tony Bennett's.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's the show, you guys. Thank you so much. It's a long one today. We have a Patreon page. If you want to support us, that would be amazing. Just go to patreon.com/whatacreep. If you want to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, we won't be mad about it. We'll mention you on there. Even if you just hit the stars and just hit for 5 stars, that'd be great. But it helps us find people. Tell friends about the show if you are enjoying it. That makes us feel good. We're on Twitter @CreepPod. And if you want to send us a creep suggestion or a not creep suggestion, try Creeppod. Get the Annie Potts gift from Ghostbusters. We got one. Send that there. We love that. That gets our attention. Or you could post it in our private Facebook group, What a Creep podcast group. You have to ask to join that. We do have email. You can send comments and suggestions to our email. We will read it. It's whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. Also, send an email if you would like some stickers. We'll drop them in the mail for you. We have a merch store now. Go to threadless.com. I know, it's so rad. And look for What a Creep podcast. If you can't find it, if you join our Facebook group, it's in there. The link is in there. And what was I going to say? Oh, we also co-host a show called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies. And if you like the sound of our voices, check out Dorking Out. We have a lot of fun there. And
It's so fun.
it's so great. What's our next Dorking Out?
We are talking about The Expendables with Adam Risky from F This Movie, and we're going to make our own like Expendables team, our own custom teams. It's going to be a really fun conversation. I just watched the movie last night, and I definitely have some thoughts about
I'm
The
watching it
Expendables.
tonight. Yeah. So definitely check that out. Subscribe. You'll never miss an episode. And Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter and Instagram. And that's Sonia with an I. Sometimes people reach out and they're like, I thought it was with a J or with a Y. It's with an I. That's how you find me. Where can people find you, Margot?
I'm at Brooklyn Fit Chick on social media. I'm mainly active on Twitter and Instagram. And my blog is brooklynfitchick.com. And guys, we'll be back next week with a new creep. But in the meantime, wash your hands, wear your masks, and don't be a creep.
Creep.
Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.